You keep pushing forward and keep loving, keep reaching out, and don't let your ego get involved.
Welcome to Fatherhood, breaking the toxic cycle. Dive in as real dads bear all, the mess-ups, make-ups, and every heartfelt moment in between. Tune in. It's raw, it's real, and it might just change the way you see family.
All right, welcome to another episode of Fatherhood, Breaking the Toxic Cycle. And here today, I have a very dear friend. Wasn't always a dear friend, but Curtis, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for agreeing to come on. And, our relationship started about 5-6 years ago. And with you doing some contracting work for me and
Yeah.
developed into a friendship.
Yep.
And then it went sideways. And then it went very dark. And just as I've been on my journey of healing, there was a point in time where I reached out to you just to see how you're doing. Finally had displaced the ego and decided that I need to just reach out and see how you're doing. And it was Father's Day that it happened. And I called and you were in a very dark place.
Yes.
And it all just kind of happened in synchronicity.
Yeah.
But thank you for agreeing to be on.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So you want to share a little bit of your story of who you are, where you're from, and maybe start with a little bit of your childhood.
Sure. I was born in Redondo Beach, California. Lived in Orange County predominantly my whole life as a child. And I was born with a hole in my heart.
With a hole in your heart?
Yeah. So it was very experimental back in that time. So UCLA started doing all their research on me and getting prepared to do open heart surgery and heal my heart.
How old were you when this?
I was born with it.
You were born with it.
And then I had the operation at 4 years old.
At 4 years old?
Yeah. And that was kind of my first encounter with something bigger than myself, the Father in heaven. That was my first encounter. And those in 1968, they didn't allow the parents to stay with the child. So I still remember them dragging my mom out, my dad walking away and kind of going completely hysterical. And an incredible light came over me and touched me and said it was going to be okay. And that's kind of how my journey started in life. That kind of trauma. Yeah.
Now, being born with a hole in your heart,
Yeah.
at such an early age, did you know that you were sick, or were you feeling physical complications of it, or were you just a normal boy and just?
Yeah, I was just a normal kid with blue lips because I didn't have enough oxygen, and that's probably what happened to me.
Wow.
But yeah, I was just a normal kid, but being traumatized with being left with complete strangers, having to go through that process, I think really did a big effect on my life.
So now you have the surgery and it makes you better.
Yeah.
And then tell me about your early childhood. So now, did you live with your mother and father?
Yeah. My mom was married to my dad at a very young age at 15, and she was in Texas, and they were married for about 7 years, and she left him and went to Redondo Beach and met another man and got pregnant, and he didn't want nothing to do with it. So my dad came back from Texas and remarried her, and that was my father from when she was pregnant.
Really?
Yeah.
And how was life growing up?
It was good. My dad was a good provider. Of course, I wasn't his son, so there was never really that complete connection with each other. But he was a great provider and very well loved, and died at a very young age at 60 with cancer. That's how that played out.
Let me ask you a question, because you just said something that kind of stood out, because there's a lot of children that are raised by someone that's not their natural, father.
Yeah.
And you didn't feel that connection. So what could he have done to make you feel wanted? And I'm not sure if that's the right word I'm looking for, but so somebody coming into, let's say, a new marriage, and then the mother has a son or daughter.
Yeah.
What can they do to make you feel loved?
Just love. I think that's the biggest thing. Just hugs and one-on-one and express it, being more expressive and communicate. And he was a workaholic, so I never really saw him. So there was really never a connection like that. I think I was always seeking after that in one form or another.
Did you
And
have
respect as well for that as well.
respect? Did you
Yeah.
have father-son moments, like going to a baseball game or
We would definitely, we would definitely have father-son moments. Yeah.
okay. And how's your relationship with your mom?
It was good up to a certain point as a teenager. And then, um, something happened. I caught her with one of my best friends in my room, and that kind of started my life journey of destruction.
So you came home one day.
Oh, I was actually best friend and I were sleeping downstairs. He was a few years older than me. He was like 19 or 20,
Okay.
and we were sleeping downstairs. And I woke up very early, went upstairs to my room, and my mom was in there naked with him. I kind of just like acted like I didn't see it, went downstairs. And they obviously left and did what they had to do. She just went to work like nothing ever happened. But that break at that age, at 13, for me was it was devastating. It really was.
Did you confront your mom like at that point or
No,
did
I
you
later, like about a week later, we had talked about it, and she asked me, "Do you think you'll tell Dad?" And I said, "Well, no, I don't want to destroy him like that." I think my whole life growing up, going to all these different places with her, she had been promiscuous like that for pretty much my whole life.
and how did that now start to define your relationship with women? Because that's got to be traumatic as a young child.
I've been married 3 times, so it definitely started a road of destruction, of non-trusting, and I've lost total respect for women at that point. So I was not a good man, I don't think, good father in, in that sense.
Now, when you say you weren't a good man, can you kind of expand on that? What did that look like? How did
Well,
that, trauma now show up for other women?
I was very non-trusting, very abusive, never really had respect. It's hard, guessing. I was always there for my kids with my ex-wives, but I never really any respect. I was very much just in the world with material things, and I don't know how to explain.
Did now being that this happened with your mom, when you went into your first marriage, did you go in guarded and not trusting, even though you were married and it's a whole different situation?
Oh, I had a lot of affairs. I had a lot of women. There was a lot of partying and uh, just living the Orange County life. I think everybody was sleeping with everybody. That's all I really knew, and I gave part of my soul away for that. I really feel that I fell into that trap like that of self-destruction. So,
Now, in that, moment when, and I'm going to just go back a little bit, when that happened, and okay, so the damage is done.
yeah.
Is there anything your mother could have done to start the process of healing at an earlier age? Is there something she could have done that could have started to help you in the process of forgiving?
She was an incredible lady. She was very beautiful. She's very successful, and I don't think so. I really don't. I think it played out the way it had to play out because I did love her, but at that point in my life, I completely just lost complete respect for her as a person. I really did, and for females in general. So And the world doesn't teach that, especially in Orange County, right? There's
Mm.
a lot of how big are you and how much money do you make? What do you drive? And it's all about that. So, yeah, I was on a road of destruction, marriage after marriage after marriage. So,
How many kids do you have?
5.
5.
Yeah.
And how old are they?
I have a 38-year-old, a 35-year-old. My son CJ, he would be 32. I have a 21-year-old son and a 17-year-old daughter.
And each marriage, you had children in the
I had
marriage?
3 with the first marriage and 2 with the second and none with the third.
Okay. And how has life been, growing up, now being a father and, with you having a little bit of toxicity as you were growing up and going through the struggles? How did you show up for your children?
Well, I did every soccer game, every baseball game, every football game. I had them every other weekend and a couple days during the week. I was there for them for everything. And um, they're good. My kids are good. They're solid. So I think CJ's the only one that suffered a little bit because he was my first son. And when we went through that separation, that divorce, I think it affected him greatly.
How do you think it affected him?
I think maybe he was emotionally affected by how his mom was as a mom, with her drinking and her promiscuity as well. And I think he just lost trust in parents, one source or another.
Do you feel like as a father, now, did you know this was going on?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. And I tried to protect him and love him and do the best I could. So it just, that was just kind of how it ended up with him. So I think it affected him great.
Looking back now,
Mm,
do you think there's anything that you could have done differently?
100%.
What are some things that you could have done differently? So because his mom was not emotionally available, is that correct?
She was, but
Okay.
she's just a little party world.
Okay.
So, and differently, yeah, I could have done a lot of things different. I really could have.
Could you maybe give us some examples? Because this would be something where, um, one of the reasons that we're here is, as you're sharing your story, to maybe you've shared, what you did, but what are some, I'm going to say key takeaways,
Yeah.
that you're looking back in retrospect and go, man, wish I would have done this differently. I wish I've done it. Can you give us some specific examples? Because this will help other fathers that are going through a similar situation.
Uh, Communicate always, I think, and be in good communication standards with your significant other, your ex or your wife. And I think keeping the line of communication open is really important. Just being there emotionally more than financially.
Hmm. Can you expand on that? Being there more emotionally than financially, that's powerful right there.
Well, parents tend to in these days, because we're 2 working family entities. I know it's changed a lot since the pandemic, but it's easier just to give and not deal. And so the kids go off in their own world and their own devices and their own journeys. And we're doing our journey when we should be coming together, I think, more as a family. And with that aspect.
So you have a blended family now,
Mm.
and now you have, kids from 2 different marriages.
Yeah.
How was that?
It's good right now. It really is.
Well, how was it back then?
Mm.
Because this is one of the struggles that,
Yeah, the first one was it was a tough divorce. It really was. It was really tough. But everything for me now is very amicable, for sure, with my exes, and we all get along pretty well. So we're doing okay.
what have you done to put in place, let's call it a system, but to create a family bond with the blended family between two marriages? What are some things that have worked and what are some things that have not worked?
Well, my first blended family was putting the kids first other than my spouse. And that, I think, is a great mistake. I think the two need to come together for the kids and let them acclimate to it and not try to play any roles. It's just trusting in each other and the kids will follow. Um, and with the second one, I just was just who I was still as a person, needing a lot of healing within myself to be able to love somebody else. That's probably where that got destroyed.
Let me ask you about ego,
Yeah.
because
Anything about that.
so you have a very strong ego, and I know that's something you're working on. How did your ego show up as you were raising your children?
I think my ego mainly was a protection shield, more than anything. With my kids, I was pretty down to earth. We're really, really super tight, all of us. So, but you do all the father stuff till they get to a certain age, and then they become their own people. And you try to guide and lead in the right direction, and they don't always take that. Ego is, like you said, stay in contact with them no matter what we're going through, and then ego would kick in. Well, if you're going to be like that, then I just keep doing my thing. Yeah, it was a great hit, without a doubt.
So tell me about a time that you remember, a beautiful memory that you experienced with all your kids in unity.
All their birthdays, and I had always come together with the exes for that, and they're celebrating my grandkids and having everybody come together like that.
So they all came together,
Yeah,
all the exes
yeah,
together,
yeah, they would.
one house. Okay. So that's not the norm,
Yeah, it's
just so you
not.
know.
Yeah,
But you guys were able to do that.
yeah, we did. With my second wife, she wouldn't really be in that, but the first and the third they would come to, we all knew each other. So we all see each other at sporting events, but there would be a time where a couple of the exes would come together and cohabitate, and celebrate kids' functions and events more than anything.
So for the events, for the special occasions, everybody
Yeah.
came together.
Yeah.
Do you think that helped to keep the bond with your children together?
Particularly,
No.
just more uncomfortable, I think, for everybody. And
Can you expand on that? That's
well, the jealousy with women and men, so that would always be a factor, I think, more than anything. More of the adult aspect of.
so. Let's talk about, you've experienced a little bit of tragedy
Yeah.
in your life in the last couple of years. Why don't you take us to that, to your relationship with your son that you lost, and what your relationship was like with him, and then that day when you got the phone call.
Well, it was 2 a.m. when I got the phone call.
What was his name?
Curtis, Justin, CJ.
CJ. So, and how was your relationship with him?
It was-
How old was he? And tell
He
me a
was
little
23, and we were good. He was a good kid. He was doing what he had to do, and we worked together that day that the tragedy happened. And I dropped him off at the park, and I said, "I love you." I said, "I love you too, Dad." And I went on my way, and then I got a phone call at 2 a.m.
bit. And what happened?
I dropped him off at a park because he was going to pick up his girlfriend that lived across the street, and they were playing baseball. Little League was playing baseball, and he grew up in sports. He was an excellent athlete. And it was like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, right there in Upland. there was a homeless man, an Hispanic homeless man that was on drugs. I think he had a mental problem. I think he was more of the drugs, from what I heard. And he was yelling and cussing at the kids playing ball. And my son went to say, "Hey, kick back, they're over there playing. It's okay, relax." And he looked back at his girlfriend, and when he looked back to this homeless individual, he shot him before he even lifted up his hand. He didn't even have a chance in the heart, and the bullet stayed in his heart. So that happened in front of his girlfriend and another friend of his. The paramedics came and took him to the San Antonio hospital, where they pumped everything they could into him, but they could not bring him back. The wound was too great in his heart, and he passed away.
And so that call comes in at 2, 3 in the morning?
Yeah. I got up, and I lived in Claremont at the time, so I went right to the scene, talked to the detectives, and there was nothing there, just a yellow tape and a camera. The park was completely empty. So I left a couple hours later, went home, and then went back at 6 o'clock in the morning and started walking the park where the event had happened, and found some homeless people. Started talking to a homeless veteran. His name was Bob, and started inquiring, and he said he knew who the individual was that shot my son. And so I called the detectives down, and they took a statement. They started following this individual on the cameras. He crossed over in Mexico, and I've been waiting for extradition by Homeland Security because he was executed, so the feds got involved, and to extradite him back to the United States for prosecution. And I have something set up with the detectives that if he's ever brought in and captured, that I'd like to go before him and let him know that I forgive him, don't hold anything. He's already taken everything from me, so I don't want to give him any more of my energy other than what he's already done. So I really don't have anything towards this individual, whether he goes to prison or he dies. He's 67 now, years old, so it really means nothing to me. I've let my son go, know where my son's at. He's with the Father, and to me, he's an archangel on my side fighting through this world that I'm going through. I'm at peace where my son, I really am.
And, you've come full circle to forgiveness, but tell me about that time when you were in that moment of the pain and the hurt and the anger. Tell me about those moments and what were you processing at that time? Because we go into sometimes fits of rage and we want justice. And how did that look for you?
That ended my third marriage. That was because it wasn't her child, so I don't think anybody can ever understand losing unless it's your own. So with drinking and the abuse, and that marriage ended, and I think that was me raging on others other than myself. I really do. Destroying, just burning bridges all along the way. And until actually I started my journey with you is when I'm really feel like there's a chance to start healing. And I went to everybody and asked for forgiveness a million times. So I've been going through this journey for the last, 5, 6, 7 years. When he passed, I really came to a place to where I have to start doing for others other than myself. And since I've started that journey, I can't stop the flow of great things happening to me in my life. It's been amazing.
Is there any tips you could offer mother or father that loses a child to tragedy that you look back on now that could help? I don't want to say shorten the grieving process because there's never an end to the grieving process, but things that would help you to cope during that time.
Coping. You're never going to get that part of your heart back ever. That's gone forever. Mm. That if you lose a son or a daughter, that's part of your heart you'll never get back. Think about them every day. I think it just has a foundation of something bigger than yourself, and believing you'll see them again, and having the right people around you, having a good foundation of good people around you, helping you push through it like yourself. You were there for me in a big way. I think that's why we came back around full circle and why we're here today. Um, I think just having a foundation bigger than yourself, whatever that is for you in your life. For me, it's the Father above, control the whole universe. So, and really try to reach out for others other than yourself, and get that foundation in bed. I think is the key to life. I really do. Really how this is all kind of unfolded for me in that aspect.
You know, I know you've, from the years I've known you, you know, God's played an instrumental part in your life.
Mm.
And I know when we're talking off camera, you had shared that for most of your life, or even pretty much all your life until recently, you've never felt peace. And it's always been chaos. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Since birth, I've been in pain, and a series of events growing up in my life when that happened at a teenager age, and divorce after divorce, and doing the same pattern over and over and over. I never really took a look at myself and did the inner healing for myself so I could be able to love somebody other than myself. It makes any sense. Falls in.
No, it does. What would inner healing have looked like to you back then?
More forgiving myself, loving myself, not hating myself, not trying to distract myself. So,
Do you love yourself?
I'm trying. I really am. I'm really trying to get to that place of peace and happiness.
Have you forgiven yourself?
Probably not yet. Yeah.
How's your relationship with your other kids?
They're good kids. I'm very lucky, very blessed on that aspect. My older daughters are really good, God-fearing women, and my other daughter is super active and in high school, going to graduate a half a semester early, going to APU. She's a drummer. She's a dancer. My other son is going to school and has a good job. So they're doing good. Very, very lucky with my kids.
What do you attribute to the success of your kids? You know, because I know, you know, life has been bumpy for you.
Mm.
But what do you think were the secrets or the
Good moms. I'm lucky in that respect. Their moms are great. And I've always tried to be there the best I can. Have I done it perfectly? I haven't, but I've always tried to be there for my kids the best I can in every way. It's on their shoulders, and they have a good foundation. They're doing it,
and can I talk a little bit about plant medicine?
of course.
So, we reconnected after probably about 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And-
Pandemic, for sure.
Yes. And I, you know, had started my journey 3.5 years ago with plant medicine and started the process of healing my relationship with my family, kids, my relationships just all around me. And I remember that phone call when I reached out to you, and you were in a very dark place. Matter of fact, I think it was Father's Day.
Yeah, well,
And I just, I remember you had called me a couple of weeks before, and had we had started the conversation, I told you about, you know, ayahuasca and psilocybin and so forth. And it piqued your interest, but my ego had kicked in, and I'm like, okay, let me send you to some people.
Ye-
I
that
started sending
rabbit
some
trail.
people, and so then you had inquired about the information, and I sent you some information. And I remember sitting down during Father's Day, and I was having a conversation with my wife, and I said, Curtis is he's expressed interest in wanting to sit with plant medicine, and I know we have the resources to put him in contact with the right people,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure if I'm comfortable doing that. And I remember her looking at me and saying, but she's reaching out to you for help.
Yeah.
And then so started the process of inviting you to sit in ceremony. And tell me about that.
That was scary. I've never done plant medicine before. So I was 100% secure with you at that time. We're both warriors, and we did have a falling out. So I was nervous. And I did journey and fought for the first half of the journey, and then I let go, and it turned out to be a great eye opener on my self healing. It really has been wonderful. It really,
What has a medicine? We'll talk about the first journey.
yeah.
What did it show you or reveal to you that started the path towards healing?
I think my first encounter was for forgiveness for others, my ex-wives and my kids, and for who what I was as a person in the world. Um, so that first eye-opening session for me was really letting that part of that go. Because I've told them all every day. I tell them I love you and I'm sorry for who and what I was, and they're at the point to like, Dad, you don't have to tell us that anymore. We know you love us, and we know. We don't have nothing. We love you. Stop. They don't want me to keep running it over, but I do. So for me, that was the letting go of that part of my life.
Why do you continue to apologize?
Oh, probably because I haven't forgiven myself. I think you hit it on the head in the beginning of the podcast. I really think that's what I went to the second journey for, was to start internally now myself through this last into.
So this last journey, which just happened in the last week, was very bumpy for you.
It was.
Very bumpy. And, you know, they say that the way you show up in journey is the way you show up in life.
Oh,
And you didn't complete the journey.
oh, I didn't.
You walked out midway through.
Yes, I did.
There's some powerful lessons in that came to fruition over integration, you know, over the last couple of days.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about that experience? And
I went already super down. I'm estranged from my fiance right now at this time. We're not together. So I was going through that, and both of my kids had just moved out. One moved out with his girlfriend, and the other one's back with mom right now. She's been with me for the last 3 years, my youngest. So I was already pretty down. I just got rubbed wrong. My ego swelled up. I wanted to protect myself, like back when I was a kid, and I didn't want anybody near me. I tried to come back, but I couldn't make it. I didn't make it back. And realizing I was running from myself, I really was ready to let go of whatever's destroyed my life to this point.
you know,
Just
everything.
realizing that right now.
Wow. So we're having epiphany moments
A
right
little
now,
bit,
breakthroughs, you
yeah, a
know?
little bit. It's been all week like that. It really has, because you followed up with me. So when I was thinking it was everybody else, in reality it was me. It always had.
Can you expand on it a little bit deeper? Because that's powerful right there. You allow outside distractions to,
I did. I allowed all that to come upon me instead of just working on myself, and I swelled up to protect myself, hurting myself more than anything because I should have followed through. There was some amazing breakthroughs for sure.
and something we discovered over the last couple of days is you created a little bit of a fitness ego inside to protect yourself because you're a big guy.
Yeah.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you did 385. You went to the gym because you were angry and you wanted your muscles to just explode. So you did 385 shoulder presses or
reps, yeah, just
reps,
shoulders, yeah.
and you just
As
wanted
much
to
pain as I could put into myself.
put yourself through pain.
Yeah. That seems the norm for me.
I struggle with 20, so 385. Wow.
That's
What?
about right.
Tell me about that. So why did you want to put yourself through pain?
I think just because of what I went through and what I'm going through, what I'm dealing with, of being alone 100% for the first time in my life, and just looking for an out to deal with that pain management. So I think that's why I go to that extreme.
You know, I started to do some research on it because there was somebody else that's had a journey that has used fitness as a I want to say it's a
Outlet.
crutch, but an outlet to push out their pain and almost like guilt. And there's actually it's actually called something. I don't know what it's called, but it's actually a thing where people can become addicts, fitness. And it sounds like your outlet, your addiction was at one time alcohol,
Yeah.
but a big underlying portion is it's always been fitness.
Yeah. Yeah. I always leaned on that and pushed myself through that instead of dealing with the pain like I'm beginning. So that just got me through that day. That's how that played out.
So what are some of the breakthroughs you're having now, just in the last couple of days now, sitting outside of ceremony and just you're starting to have these aha moments and breakthroughs through integration and just in conversations. What are some takeaways that you're taking with you?
Well, I'm not done. Obviously, I still have a lot of work to do. I feel like I'm just beginning to scratch the surface. With that, I'm doing a lot more outreach in different ways for my son that was killed. He was killed by a homeless man. The person that discovered and gave me the information who killed him was a homeless veteran. So, trying to heal through giving to others other than myself. And I'm connected with the landowner and connecting with a prefab for the flexible smart houses, and we're hoping to start to manufacture these homes and then quite possibly going on different networks to start giving these houses away to homeless. I think that's a big part of my healing for everything that I'm trying to do for myself is for others. Seems to be working really well at this point. And dealing with myself, my internal ego demons that I've been dealing with my whole life, letting a lot of stuff go. Continue to heal.
Wow. So this, in a way, it's a way to honor CJ's legacy, and that's through giving back to homeless.
Homeless vets, veterans, and my whole team all has their own story. With Carb One, Andre Robinson giving food away to them. So we want to get them into a home, put food in the refrigerator for a year, and give them a foundation bigger than themselves so they don't get to a point to where they have to kill somebody like my son. So they have a bigger foundation of themselves, because that's kind of what my goals are at this. That's what I've been really focused on. And the internal healing, you kind of came in it all kind of came together at the same time.
Have you guys started a nonprofit or just
that's all, everything's all, we're actually already started a couple of series with Discovery Channel. So we're putting dialogue together for Discovery, Telemundo, and all the other cable channels to promote this idea. And we have the land, we have the home, so we're putting it all together now. And with this opportunity, I thought it'd be great to share it. Really would. So very blessed and honored. I really do.
Well, no, thank you. It sounds like it's a beautiful, 360-degree circle from tragedy to healing.
Yes.
And now starts a process of, showing up and creating that legacy, not only for CJ, but for the rest of your kids, because we don't want to forget them either.
Yeah. For everybody, I think, in general, for everybody that is suffering with just guilt and pain, to find themselves and find a foundation bigger than themselves so they can move forward in their life, for sure.
As we start to wind down this podcast, and thank you for sharing and being so vulnerable, because there's going to be a lot of fathers
that was super hard. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting putting my whole life out there and my head get whacked off. So it seems like that's where I've been for quite a while at this point. But that was horrible.
What final thoughts or tips, best practices would you offer fathers that are in a similar situation, dealing with chaos in their life, ego, just darkness? What would you offer them to help them in the process of how they show up with their children?
As dads, we try to do everything we can for everybody. I really have. I've always tried to be there for everybody. I've done it perfectly. No. For myself, you need to find internally your peace and happiness with yourself first. And I think that's where I made my biggest mistake, because I was always, I got this wife and I got this kid and her kid and that kid. And I was always going in this big circle, never really dealing with myself and what I had to do to find happiness for myself, to be able to be an example for my wives and my kids. You really need to find yourself and do everything with love and emotion. Somebody from the Zoom call last night said, don't do it from here, but do it from here. That's very powerful to me. You really need to do things with your heart and not out of emotion. And that's the journey I'm on now at this point. Suffering a lot, but I do see light at the end of the tunnel. You really have to fix what's going on inside you first. I think that's why your encounters and the way you've set up the ranch is so beautiful, because you're releasing so many people into more of themselves and loving themselves to be able to love others. I think until you're good with yourself, you're going to fail otherwise. You have to be real, be loving with yourself before you can do it with others.
Well, I love that resonated with you, as to think from the heart, and not from the mind, and show up that way. You said something that we didn't touch on, but when you went into the relationship with your wives and they had children, other children that weren't yours, how did you embrace them, being that you already had kids? Tell me a little bit about that. Did you welcome them in? Yes, tell me about that.
I didn't embrace them too much. I really did. My second wife had a child, and I never wanted my kids to think that I loved her the way I loved them. It was kind of back to when my father did the same with me. And the second wife, she had 3 kids, and I connected with one of them, not really with the other 2. And then my last fiance had a couple kids that I really loved, really fell for, and really started that turning cycle. She was a big part of that turning cycle for me, to be able to open up and love. The kids all eventually go their own way. So I think it's better just to love everybody equal. I really do, instead of playing any favorites. It's like a Cinderella story, right? With the two evil stepsisters. And do that. You have to be loving, equal, and I think that's where you come to a place in your own heart to be able to do that. If you really love the person that you're with. I have no idea where that.
That's powerful. To
No
love
clue.
everybody equal. That came from your heart.
I truly, truly believe that, because there's kids that suffered from me not loving them the way I would love my own. And that's sucks. I've apologized to them. They all know. They do. It was just the way I was raised. Unfortunate.
And it was just that generational, almost curse.
It really
because
was.
of how your stepfather showed up for you.
Yeah.
And then you just followed in his
I
footsteps.
really did. Emotionless. No, never showing anything. Just very emotional. And kids are very intuitive. Very intuitive. That's another guilt thing. It's important.
Absolutely. Well, just expand
Another
on that.
thing I'm going to be letting go of. So,
Yeah. Well, that's, acknowledging that you made these mistakes and learning from them is a first step towards healing.
yeah.
And then the next layer is, of course, forgiving yourself and then seeking out forgiveness, from not only your kids if you felt they're hurt, but also from your stepchildren who aren't stepchildren, but they were your children also.
Yeah, they really were for 10 years at a time.
They're still your children.
Yeah.
And it's how you start to heal that relationship with them. Even though you're not together anymore with their mom, you were still an integral part of their lives.
Yeah.
And maybe you didn't show up the way that you wanted to because you didn't know any better.
Yeah.
But it's how you show up from this point forward that they know that, hey, even though you're not here anymore, I can still, rely on you for advice or just,
Yeah.
a shoulder to cry on.
Sure. Absolutely. I told them all. I've been in contact with them, so I've let them all. I feel a little bit at peace with that.
Any closing thoughts? Anything we left out?
I think so. Just keep the faith. Keep pushing. Don't ever give up. Keep fighting. Keep working on yourself. Stay active. Don't isolate. Try to exercise. Try to good nutrition. Feed your temple. And keep pushing. Don't quit. And journey, I was outside. A lady had come and laid next to me, and I had said, I'm so tired. I just want to go home. I really do. It just was at that place. And she said the same thing, and I came right out and said, we got to keep fighting. Can't quit. You got to keep fighting for your loved ones that are around you, because you'll do more destruction if you don't keep fighting, and you will if you don't. But you have to keep pushing. It's hard, don't get me wrong. It's brutal. There's light at the end of the tunnel. If you find peace and love in your own heart, I'm starting to see remnants of that. That's keeping me going forward.
And you said something very powerful, is to keep fighting for your loved ones.
Yeah.
Because, in today's day and age, we experience so much suicide that happens from, fathers, mothers and fathers, but fathers that feel the pain of not being loved by their children. And, one of my uncles took his life about 20 years ago because of the hurt and pain of his daughters not, he didn't feel the love.
Yeah.
And he felt that was the only way to exit.
You keep pushing forward and keep loving, keep reaching out, and don't let your ego get involved. Really just let them know that you're there for them for whenever they need, and they'll come back. They always do. One time, they'll be back. So my mom taught me that very young. Don't worry, babe. They'll be back. They always end up coming back at one time or another.
And you just have to believe that in your heart.
That's true. 100%. And keep pushing forward. Keep yourself busy.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. That's going to help heal other fathers that are going through the same struggles that you're going through, and as you start the process of healing. And ladies and gentlemen, this has been another beautiful episode of Fatherhood, Breaking the Toxic Cycle, where decisions that his mom made when at an early age, how it started his life of destruction and just chaos.
Thank you, Edward.
Thank you.